Hello, my name is Nick, and today I'm going to be reading a Pentagon review of the 6 things you can do to increase the chances that your command's interests are reflected in the outcome of discussions in the Pentagon. I will also like to start out with a quote from the Bible. This is Proverbs 16:19. It is better to be lowly in spirit among the humble than to divide the spoil with the proud. Alright, so number 1, accept that no choice is binary. I can go over the bullet point title for the first 6 and then I will get into reading them. Number 2, avoid technical or bureaucratic reasoning. 3, never stake a position on less than 6 stars. 4, build the broadest possible coalition. 5, stick to a common language, costs, benefits, ends, and risks. 6, embrace a new way of winning. Alright, so let's get to number 1 here. Accept that no choice is binary. There are always more than 2 options. Through decades of schooling and sports, many of us learn to think of all choices as a matter of right versus wrong. We mistakenly believe there is a rationally optimal choice, which anyone, anywhere would accept as long as they apply sound reasoning. The Pentagon disputes workers of this fallacy in short order. The fact is, no choice is binary in the Pentagon. Every position that must be taken, option that must be exercised, or policy that must be developed falls somewhere on a vast spectrum of choices between do absolutely nothing and throw out the system, start over. Too often, well-meaning workers present their leaders with a this or nothing decision brief, as if to say that the leader must only choose whether to accept or reject the work exactly as written. Wise Pentagon workers know there are as many nuanced positions and policy options as there are stakeholders in a conversation. To win an argument, the first step is to recognize that everyone's proposed position is both valid and fluid. If rationality should be involved, we must rationally acknowledge that no stakeholder's position is inherently more or less valuable than other stakeholders' positions. Accept that no choice is binary, and you will start to see that winning an argument is about trading ancillary aspects of your position to others so that every stakeholder gets as much of their core position or policy adopted as possible. 2. Avoid technical or bureaucratic reasoning. Executives care about the destination. It's not about road building and lane stripping. Even the most Byzantine processes are determined by executive decisions. At the leadership level, the details of how a decision is carried into effect matter much less than the results and implications. The best executives speak in a common language that spans organizational cultures and rests on the concepts of cost, benefit, end state, and risk. More on that later. Abandon forever the habit of describing a policy option in terms of the process needed to achieve it. Instead, elevate your thinking and your talking points beyond the technical or bureaucratic. Executives, even from other organizations, have great faith in your ability to carry out their decisions. They trust that you will take the steps required, even if you are not sure what they are yet. And, just to be clear, a recitation of the required steps is not necessary. So, save yourself from patronizing politeness by pulling your argument out of the wire diagrams and routing slips. Come to the discussion ready to explain what your proposal achieves, and more audiences will relate to it. The more people think your position is relevant, the more likely you are to influence the discussion. Never stick a position on less than 6 stars. Title 10, United States Code Section 526, limits the number of general and flag officers on active duty in the Department of Defense. If you have never read this rather obscure federal law, you would be forgiven for thinking the number is small. It is not. The statutory limit is 963 general and flag officers across the Department of Defense, plus many exceptions that do not count towards the limit. Those 1,000 general and flag officers are encouraging, guiding, and directing their action officers every day in the hopes of effecting change in their command's interests. When virtually every organization that participates in any discussion can produce a general or flag officer memo with ease, the memos lose their clout. That matters because it means no one organization has a voice powerful enough to win an argument in the Pentagon on its own. At the Pentagon, the same staffers who show mild interest in a single organization's position will pay immediate attention when a position is presented with the overt support of 2 or more highly ranked generals. Although this is admittedly a rule of thumb based on anecdotal information, 6 stars is a good reference point. In the Pentagon, 6 stars behind a position is likely to get instant attention. This is equally true when 3 directors, major generals, address their vice chief of staff, a general, or when the vice chiefs of staff of 2 services, both 4-star officers, send a memo to an undersecretary. Schedules are rearranged swiftly, no notice meetings are called, and recommendations are given careful consideration. Where to find the 6+ stars you need depends on the argument you are trying to win. Build the broadest possible coalition. This is number 4. You should always seek to build a coalition that spans as much of the breadth of a form's membership as you can manage. Joint discussions demand joint coalitions. For example, if all of the uniformed services are invited to a roundtable and the Army wants to win the argument, then the Army's representatives will have a much higher chance of carrying their point if they spent the time ahead of the forum to get the Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps representatives on board. Arguments within a single organization require coalitions across staff sections. Sometimes the composition of a would-be coalition is obvious, other times it is not. Consider budgeteers, strategists, acquisition professionals, policymakers, as well as human capital managers, force designers, and supply chain managers. The permutations are extensive, but always remember that the broadest possible coalition willing to speak with a shared voice has the best chance of carrying the day. Granted, forging many stakeholders into a cooperative body can sometimes require moderating the finer points of various positions. Fortunately, the act of coalition building will force you to decide which aspects of your desired outcome are essential, and which can be adjusted, traded, or dropped for the sake of shared buy-in. Some may say this is losing, but you will know better. This is winning as much as you can, when you can, with friends. Number 5. Stick to a common language. Costs, benefits, ends, and risks. Voltaire wrote, "Define your terms, you will permit me again to say, or we shall never understand one another." Differing definitions of any term can cause organizations to talk past each other. Removing jargon from your communications not only helps to avoid confusion, it also focuses your words more clearly on the essence of a problem, such as making the right trade-offs across disparate activities. All governmental activities incur costs to deliver benefits toward a desired end state, but do so while imposing some risks to other activities that could have used the same resources in a different way. Jargon can be fatal to achieving the essential understanding of these trade-offs. Ruthlessly criticize your own communications. Stick with broadly applicable terms which have generally accepted definitions, as mentioned earlier. Executives often speak in a common language that rests on the concepts of cost, benefit, end state, and risk. Redefine what it means to win. Winning is not about crashing through every barrier and reaching the top of everyone's priority list. Rather, winning means achieving productive, positive change, adequately resourced, and properly administrated. Whether you want to launch a satellite, patrol the ocean, guard Americans overseas, this allows influential people who may know nothing about the details of your work to feel comfortable putting your position into the context of all the other positions competing for the same resources. You cannot build a coalition outside your own office unless people with significantly different points of view feel like they have a good idea what you are talking about. Stick with the common language to achieve that. Finally, number 6, embrace a new way of winning. Finally, if you want to win an argument at the Pentagon, redefine what it means to win. Winning is not about crashing through every barrier and reaching the top of everyone's priority list. Rather, winning means achieving productive, positive change, adequately resourced, and properly administrated. Embrace compromise and moderate goals that go along with it. The Pentagon is the place where the interests of many organizations are merged into a single $600 billion annual budget with clear priorities. Priorities wax and wane. White House interest is peaked and sated. The winds and tides are good metaphors for the swirl of competing interests, ideas, and priorities that exist at any given time in the Department of Defense. If you are serious about achieving something great at the highest levels of American national security policy, cast off the simplistic idea of zero-sum arguments. Seek instead to rebuild a broad coalition, remembering that every organization has interests, which often overlap. Use common language to avoid minutiae while focusing on important cross-organizational questions. Compromise to let many stakeholders gain 80% of something rather than 100% of nothing. That is how you win an argument in the Pentagon. Thank you for listening.